Hello, all, and welcome to the newest series on the channel, the My All Time Favorites series. These albums that I post under this tag, in no specific order, are some of the albums that have changed my outlook on music as a musician or just general in life. There's so many great examples of underground bands with unique sounds or bands who did a lot in their small scene to help change or alter a genre. But I think Glasvegas is a great example of this. Glasvegas is a Scottish indie rock band and noise pop band from Glasgow, Scotland, who are often compared to bands such as Oasis and the Jesus and Mary Chain for their noisy soundscapes, dreamy guitars, and very, very unique vocals. James Allen has maybe one of the most unique vocal deliveries in modern rock, with his very heavy Scottish accent adding much emotion to every track, especially on the first two records. While I can say that I'm a big fan of all their albums somewhat, even though I'm not huge on the third one, their self-titled debut easily blows everything else they've done out of the water, for me. Glasvegas was released in September 2008, just months before a Christmas-themed EP by them was released as well. It is packed with much emotion on tracks such as Daddy's Gone, It's My Own Cheating Heart That Makes Me Cry, and combats a lot of themes that they still write about to this day, mental health being a big one. The album and EP were both produced by lead singer James Allen and Rich Costey, who has worked with Muse, among many others. The album was recorded in New York and Glasgow, Scotland, while the EP was recorded in New York and Transylvania. For this album, the band consisted of the lineup they'd have until 2010, which is James Allen on lead vocals and guitar, Rab Allen on lead guitar and backing vocals, Paul Donahue on bass, and Caroline McKay on drums. The only change to this lineup was when Caroline left the band in 2010 and Jonna Lofgren replaced her, until she herself left in 2020. To my knowledge, they don't have a full-time replacement drummer yet, and have continued to do virtual shows during 2020 and 2021 as a three-piece with session drummers. Before I get into the songs and what makes each song itself great, I want to talk about what makes this album as a whole great. Firstly is production and lyrics, and this kind of goes hand in hand because of the style of music we're talking about, which is indie rock. Much of indie rock and noise pop, etc., isn't admittedly the most musically challenging style of music out there. But when you have great production and a great emotional set of lyrics, that's what makes a song amazing. This is what I could say for the majority of indie rock out there, such as Modest Mouse, My Bloody Valentine, Coldplay, and the hordes of other great bands. When I first heard my first Glasvegas song, which was one of the singles here, Daddy's Gone, I was absolutely blown away by the style of production. It's extremely simple, wall of sound production that Phil Spector would be proud of. The main highlight may be the combination of the extremely simple drum beats and percussion from Caroline, jangly buzzing guitars from both Rab and James, and of course, as mentioned, the extremely unique vocals James Allen delivers on this album, with that unmistakable Scottish accent, and his super motive songwriting about mental health, homosexuality, and more topics that many can find hard to write, talk, or sing about. It honestly makes me think, how did this band not get bigger than some crossover appeal in the underground in America with journals such as Enemy and Pitchfork? And I honestly don't have an answer to this question. This band should have blown up, but no. Instead, we had to be shoveled whatever fucking garbage Alt J and later the Lumineers were putting out. Okay, sorry. I got a little negative there. But am I wrong? This album, as mentioned, was very popular within the Enemy and Pitchfork circles, and Robert Christgau even called them a band that was too good to be true. That's a term I don't think I've ever heard when in relation to a rock band, but I guess it works. It got multiple positive reviews from these circles and more, and even achieved many accolades, including the third best album of 2008, according to NME. The album was also somewhat successful on the charts, especially in their home country of the United Kingdom, as well as multiple other nearby European countries such as Ireland, Sweden, Denmark, etc. A few of the singles from the album have also appeared in multiple media such as TV shows, including Daddy's Gone being on the TV show Chuck, and Geraldine being released as Rock Band DLC back in 2009. The album kicks off with a beautifully ambient Flower Tops and Football Tops, which is a moving song about the very sad killing of Chris Donald, a kid who never made it home in Glasgow. The song title is in reference to a practice in Britain where they lay shirts of the deceased's favorite football team alongside flowers and more. Most of the time, as is common here in North America, these wreaths and shirts are placed where the person passed. This is personally one of my favorite songs off the album, and is a very good pick for being the first track on the album, even though, oddly, it was the last single to be released. I guess that's just how some of those things fall sometimes. The song transitions into the biggest, arguably, single on the album, Geraldine, which is a song about mental health and social workers. To put it more specifically, according to NME, the song is about a social worker who follows the band around, flogging the merch. And I'm sorry, but I just had to grab this great excerpt from the review of this track. Imagine Total Eclipse of the Heart, ridden by a pisshead with a dead dog, and you're close to the patchwork of tragedy from which this beautiful song is wrought. Drown yourself in the wave of reverb and earnestness. It's your best option. I probably couldn't have put that better myself. To be honest, this is my least favorite of the three singles from the record. However, it is still an amazing track, and I urge you to check out the music video for it as well. It's My Own Cheating Heart That Makes Me Cry was another single, released as a digital download in early 2008, and is another album highlight here. It's songs like these that really make the album a classic for me. With the big wall sound, the jangling, shimmering guitars, and James' reverb-out vocals, this track has a great swung feel to it, with James' emotional hurrahs riding out the tracks perfectly. Something else that I haven't mentioned much is the drums and percussion that are very simple yet effective. It's essentially one crash cymbal, a floor tom, hi-hat, snare drum, and a tambourine, and then add a crap ton of delay and reverb on it. Very rarely, if ever, does the drummer use a kick drum, and it adds a pretty unique feel to it. Go watch some of their live shows on YouTube, and you'll notice the great drum style from both of these drummers. Lonesome Swan, Go Square Go, and Pull Out On My Mind are a few more tracks that help create a flow or a bridge between Cheating Heart and a track which I will soon mention, and probably go on for quite a while. I actually did mention it before, but I will mention it again because it is by far the best track on this album. Of this chunk of songs, my favorite is likely Go Square Go, just because it pumps up the tempo, which we don't really see much until this point. This was a single released in October 2006 as their debut single release via download and 7-inch single, but was re-recorded for the release of this album. It has a big pump-up chorus, and is definitely a seemingly departure from their emotional sound scattered around this record. This is another huge highlight for me. Pull Out On My Mind slows things down again with some great songwriting, and while I have some good things to say about this song, I can't help but think that it falters a bit on the lyricism side, as the song repeats the same two verses and chorus. However, even if I feel a bit negatively about that track, it's not a terrible track. Like I said, great songwriting. Now, we do get into a song that was the star of this band for me, as many others. That track being Daddy's Gone. Now, I don't remember exactly when I heard this song for the first time, but I know it was when I was listening to a certain mood playlist that I tend to listen to, especially at night, for the vibes. I had it on shuffle and was on another tab. All of a sudden, I heard these amazing, bright, shimmering guitars with a distinctive Scottish accent singing over it. I had to see who this was. Glasvegas. Boom. Had to listen to more. And I did. I listened to all of their music that came out at that point, now including their album Godspeed, which just came out about a week or two ago. This discovery was around 2019, like mid 2019. It's crazy how a band can stick with you with just one song. And that's what Glasvegas did here. This is by far the best track on the album, like I mentioned, and maybe one of their tops in their career. The song deals with subject matter which I admittedly have a hard time listening to without welling up sometimes, because it's extremely relatable in that being a father abandoning their children. I don't want to make this like a long thing because I feel like that's a story for a whole other day, but this song is, in a nutshell, my relationship with my father. And the delivery that James presents it in is just extremely heart-wrenching, especially when you get to the climax near the end. This is extremely well written and is one of the biggest reasons I would declare this album one of my favorites, and is one of the reasons I constantly go back to spin this. Stabbed is a shorter spoken word poem type song written by James about gang violence in the east end of Glasgow, which is the area Glasvegas lives. The spoken word is sung over Moonlight Sonata, which is actually very fitting because it's about Glasgow at night, or specifically the East End at night. So I definitely do think that the spooky, classical texture adds something. Satellite is another extremely simple track. However, it really works, and personally to me, it would be great backing music as a finale for a TV show. Like, I'm imagining The Office or some kind of British TV show or something like that. The strings-esque guitar work stands out so well within the wall of noise, and there is so much reverb on the drums, making them sound gorgeous, loud, and splashy. Ice Cream Van is the last track on the album and works quite decently as a closing track, and could work as an opening track if you wanted to listen to this album backwards or on shuffle in some way, I guess. While it can take a bit for it to get started, the beautiful pads throughout the whole song complement James' voice and especially his backing harmonies and doubles. At the end, there's a great blast of noise that just sends emotions and chills to you, which is really the peak of this track and why I think this is a perfect closer. Finally, my overall thoughts on this album are, of course, it remains one of my favorite 2000s indie records after all these years since discovering it. Glasvegas is a big talent and deserve more love. They're very underrated in my opinion. If you like this type of music, please do check them out. I'll put links to this album as well as to their new album, Godspeed, which is an incredible, outspoken, and emotional record in its own right. There's my first classics review. Apologies about not releasing much new content in the past few weeks. There just hasn't been much good stuff to review. However, this weekend is supposed to be pretty busy. New Cannibal Corpse album coming out, so expect a review or two coming out next weekend. And I'll do a classic review every couple weeks or something like that. We'll see. I also have some list style format videos coming if you're interested in that. So yeah, leave a like, drop a sub, and I'll see you dudes later. Glasvegas, 2008. Classic. Peace.